cool. Well, I'm Damien. So today I'll be talking. Today I'll be talking about slots. And just before I begin, I want to know how many of you have used slots before? You. All right. So you're pretty familiar with the concept, right? Otherwise, it's a bit more advanced in Vue. It's not something like you might use or see every day. So what I want to talk about today is how we're going to move beyond the slots. And I'm gonna briefly cover what slots are and do briefly, so you're familiar with it, and then what we can do to go beyond that to create what I call and some call compound components that will enable you to write more modular code and components that can interact with each other. All right, so there are three different types of slots in Vue. We have the default slot, which is the unnamed slot. We have named slots and scope slots. And I'll be showing each other off. And now the purpose of slots really is to render content dynamically from the template body. So all the examples in this presentation is using the Vue single file component. So if you can just imagine in your template body, a slot is really like a slot right in the template where you want people who are using your components to insert your markup. And thus it's dynamic and the markup is rendered. So to illustrate this concept, we'll be building a very simple Vue single file component. And in this case, we'll be taking care of some styling layout for an imaginary web application. All right, so to start off, how you define a default slot. It's very simple. Now, imagine we create a simple layout.vue file. We have the template area here. We have, let's say, main content for our layout page, and we can insert slot. And that's how it looks. Now, so name slots, it's literally the same element, except now it has an attribute, and the attribute value will be the actual name of the slot. So using the same content of semantics, right, we can define a header, and we can define a footer in our simple layout, and we can just say, okay, I want people who are using this layout component to be able to insert their header content or the footer content, and I, as a component, I don't need to know about it. I just want people to use it. Now, let's pretend that we have some data for the header area, for example. It's very common in header navigation to have some type of alerts, notification badges, or some information or context about the user. So we can actually use that's what we call a scope slot for that. So what a scope slot does is now it gets a little bit more complicated. Now you'll notice that we have our template, and we're going to use the header slot as our scope slot. So we use this directive in Vue, which is called v-slot, and we're going to name a property on it, and we're going to give it a value. So now we actually need a script body on that Vue file. So going over the code, we started off with exporting the actual object for the Vue component. Give it a name, the data, and here's the data that we actually want to give it to user. It's going to be an object, and in this example, we're just going to pretend that once we create a component, we set the user data, we do some type of asynchronous or synchronous action, we set it, and right here's where the magic happens, where we actually bind this into the slot, so that user data will be available to whoever's using that component. And now, here's how you would actually use it. Once you register that component, you can just use it as a regular component, simple layout, and then you use the template element to interact with the name slot. So you can see here we have the template for the footer, and we can have the default slot. The unnamed slot, you don't need to use the template syntax. You can if you want to, but it would just be unnamed. So you can just put whatever content you want in there, and it will be rendered in the simple layout. So for this example, we'll probably have a ton of CSS there that just styles everything. And over here, we have the scope slot. And you'll notice that it receives some properties from the simple layout component that then we can use here with the must-have syntax. So we're diving into those properties, and we're using username or user notifications. So that's a brief example of how you would regularly use slots in Vue. And I guess the purpose of scope slots is that it allows you to keep your code pretty clean, and it allows you to share code without the external world basically influencing or changing things, context state in the simple layout component. So it's basically just reading data that the simple layout is actually providing here. To briefly review, we can display content dynamically with the slots. We can display it selectively using name slots, and we can display shared code modularly with the scope slots. Now, let's talk a bit about the limitations of this. Now, the thing with slots is that the simple layout component isn't really aware of the outside world beyond whatever gets inserted there. So for some problems, this is actually a big issue. So what happens when we need to, for example, support an unknown number of name slots, or we actually need to know some type of information about the content that is being nested in the slot. So we really want to have more information about the outside world. And how can we achieve this? Well, Vue provides us with a system which is really basically an API called provide and inject. So we can use this to actually build a system of compound components. And these work together. They're powerful, they're self-aware, and they're modular. So very briefly, just to introduce, compound components are a set of components that you use together, that work together, and they're usually in a hierarchy, usually parent to child components. And you're actually all very familiar with them. A very familiar example would be the HTML select element. Now, if you notice this isn't actually a compound component set. We have a select element and we have child option elements, and they actually share state in between. The select is aware of the value when the user selects an option. And then you can use JavaScript to get the value to the DOM API. So they really just work together, and they use markup, not just the structure, but data. Now, let's see how we can do this in Vue. You really want to move beyond what slots give us. And for this example that I'll be giving you today, we'll be building like an interactive wizard component. So to describe the problem briefly, we want to build a wizard component that will guide users through a series of multiple steps, one by one. So we'll be starting off with a number of steps, a current step, a button for moving to the next step, and a button for moving to the previous step. At the end of the talk, I'll be showing a working example. So if you don't feel that you get all of it while I'm going through it, then don't worry. Like, you'll be able to have a little bit more time to see it in action. So each step, we're going to give it a title, and we want to know whether it's active or not. So think when you're doing like an interactive sign-up form, and it's a guided process, you move through each step, and as you move through each step, give the information that's required, then something else will render on the screen. It's basically the idea behind the wizard and the steps in the wizard. All right, so to begin, we're going to create a file that's named wizard.vue. It's a single file Vue component. And on our template area, we're going to start off with just a div. It's going to be our wizard area. And over here, we're going to start defining the data. So in the body, we know we're going to have steps, and we know we're going to start at 0, which is the current step. So now we're going to actually add some computed properties to know when we can navigate through the steps. So we're going to have a current step, and we're going to have some methods here, some computed properties, basically just to know, can I move to the next step or can I move to the previous steps? And it's very simple logic. Is if I'm not at the last step, then I can move to the next step. And if I'm not at the first step, then I can move towards the previous step. All right, so now that we have like those safeguard methods, we can actually write some methods in the markup for that. So we can build out the body of a wizard. We have the wizard body. We're gonna introduce a header, the navigation area, and very simple, just 2 anchor elements with next and previous. So we're binding these events to the two methods that we're going to write now is going to be next and previous. And we'll have the wizard body at the bottom. So now we're going to write the methods. And again, we check if we can move to the next one, then we actually proceed. And what we really do is we know we're going to have some steps in there. So what we do is that we disable the current step and we enable the next step and then move on with it. And the same thing with the previous step, but in reverse. All right, so now we know that we're navigating somewhere, but we don't exactly know what we're dealing with. We're working in abstractions. We just know we're gonna have a step. It's gonna have like an active property and it's gonna have probably a title. So now we're gonna move on to adding that in as well. So in our wizard headline, in the header, we're gonna introduce some text. It's gonna say, hey, we're at this step, and then this step has a title that we're gonna show off. So everything else is the same here. And again, it's the same here. All right, so now that the wizard component is quote unquote done, let's write the step component. So we're gonna write a new file. It's gonna call it wizard step. And the way that we're gonna do this is that it's actually gonna be a template. It's gonna have a property which is called isActive. It's gonna have a prop, which is title. And then we're gonna give it a default value of false. So basically this will be a step that will be hidden unless the wizard, which will be its parent in the hierarchy, will set it to active state. So they're pretty tightly coupled. We're writing like a system of components that are tightly coupled together. And when the active state is false, we use the view directive v.show to not show it in the DOM, set its visibility status. All right, so to recap, like our wizard step has the title and isActive data and properties. We're using the vShow directive to toggle its visibility on and off. And interestingly, it exposes a slot, which is where our actual consumer is gonna put the data in. So now we have both of those parts together. We actually wanna tie them together. So the way to do this in Vue is that we start using provide and inject. So now that we have our wizard component written out, we want to write a step to register all of the steps here. So we write out a method, it's called addStep. And then if it's the first step, if there aren't any steps in it, we set the active state to true. So it would begin with a visible step. And then we add it to the steps array. And now Vue provides a method, which is called provide. And we can actually pass it an object and we can give it the properties or methods that we want to make available, share with other components. So we just write this method for registering any type of object or any type of action, and then we provide it. And now in our wizard step component, we can use the inject property. And when you use the inject property, you have to specify what you want exactly out of it. So we know this will be used in tandem with the wizard component. So we expect to use the addStep method. And the key here really is that when we create this component, we want to add the step. We want to call this, and we're actually going to pass the actual component its instance. So now its parent component can go in and set data on this component. Now, this might be a little dangerous depending on what you're writing, but if it's very tightly coupled and the API is known, then this is a good way to write out a system of compound components. Now, when you do this, you can actually write HTML that feels very, very official in the sense of finished DOM APIs, components that work together. You might see this around in like lots of Vue libraries where you can use a parent component and a child component. And then in this case, it's going to be the wizard, the steps, and this is a very simple example. We give it a title and some content to render. It's going to be a hello world, and the wizard would actually iterate through this. Now let's see it in action. I don't know how many of you have used Code Sandbox before. It's pretty cool, especially if you're getting started with Vue. You don't have to worry about any of the tooling. It's basically like an online IDE, very similar to VS Code. They use the same editor. So you can hop on in and start working on your ideas with Vue very quickly. So very briefly, let me go over this. This is our actual wizard component. It has the same content here. Now in the div class, in the body, we give it a slot. So this can actually be used to pass in its children wizard step components, which is it itself is aware through the registration method. And in the wizard steps, then they register themselves through its parent, through provide and inject. So the markup use is very intuitive, simply like wizard steps, and you don't have to worry too much about properties or anything else. So in this case, it's a very simple example, but you can iterate through the content. And that's how you can achieve compound components with provide and inject. So if you have any questions?
Is the wizard file again? Just the wizard file?
Yes, sure. Is there any area in particular you want to?
No, I was just, that's
Let's
really
see the
cool.
provide
Combine
again.
those two,
Right, so the provide is right here.
Wow.
Yeah, and a key fact in all of this is that remembering that every Vue component, like it's a Vue instance. So when we do on the wizard step, when we reference this, we can actually pass it along just as any other variable, right? So we can actually register it with other methods or components, and the state can be shared. That's why it might be a little dangerous, because this component, the wizard, could actually modify anything in its parent, and the reactivity would still be at play.
Does the provide just provide the child components, and the inject only accepts an inject from the parent component?
So the provide just provides properties or methods. Some people even use it for like dependency injection, but I believe it's hierarchy. In a hierarchy, right?
Yes.
Tongue twister. I believe it's in the hierarchy, so you can just provide whatever you want to its children components.
Is it just the immediate child, or does it work all the way up the tree?
I think it works all the way down. So if you're providing all the way down, then anyone down the ladder, so to speak, can request them via inject.
What is a name collision problem for the both parents provide?
Yeah,
It could be, yeah.
Kinda
There's
like
no
what
stranger to
Mixins,
name collisions
same
with
issue.
the mixins and
Yeah.
some funky systems, right?
They're fixing that with the new composition API, which we'll talk about next.
Yeah. Yeah, next meeting, right?
Right.
I haven't been brave enough to update to the Vue 3 beta.
No.
Have you?
Yeah, it's Snaffle, man. I wouldn't do that yet, but you can import the composition module directly and play with it if you want to.
Yeah, I saw that they made that for Vue too. There was like a big uproar about it, but the thing that I'm most concerned of in Vue 3 is how they're changing the like attribute fall through behavior.
How do you mean?
So right now, if you stick a Vue component in another Vue component, you can like directly add class to it, and it'll just fall through to that Vue component's like top actual element.
Right.
So like it'll just land on its div, and they're changing that where you have to be explicit about where it goes.
Ah,
And
interesting.
I'm just like that's going to screw up like all my classes.
Yeah, you gotta refactor a lot, right?
There's got to be a flag in there to opt out of that behavior.
Well, I mean, you can like on a per component basis, you can set where it goes and stuff. But yeah, I posted like a long retort on the
On RFC.
yeah on the RFCs.
Yeah, that
It's the one
sounds-
that people should be worried about.
Did you make sure to be as insulting as possible, because that really gets their attention?
No. Yeah, I have like 7 thumbs up and 1 thumbs down, and not a whole lot of people looking at that particular RFC.
Yeah, no, I wasn't paying attention to that at all. Nice.
Yeah, that one's attribute fall through behavior. That one's the one that scares me.
That's right. We'll be having nightmares now.
No.
I straight up, like, I was watching a YouTube video talking about what's coming in Vue 3 as I was passing out, and then I couldn't sleep.
Oh, God, cold sweat. I fall through attributes. Oh, my God.
I was up till like 4 a.m. like trying to okay, like this like straightforward and not angry.
That's amazing. I love it.
So you ever have those dreams where you're coding in your sleep and you wake up and there's nothing there, obviously. So
Fix that big problem at work. No. That's awesome. Any other questions about the provide inject stuff?
Really elegant. This is like how to do a carousel, basically.
Yeah, you can build a lot of stuff. In fact, some libraries use it. I think Vue.js uses it, and some others.
Interesting.
Yeah, but oddly enough, you can't find too much information about it on the internet. I know when I was searching for it, I couldn't find a lot. A lot of it was just dependency injection, but not really the whole concept of compound components.
Yeah.
It's something that you don't hear about it too often.
I think I ended up with a much less elegant solution to the same problem, where it was just okay, you're mounted now, and go get your children.
I see. Right. So hard coding it.
I mean, not just that. I mean, the only reason why they're even passing that step is so that the children can register themselves in this case.
Right.
But yeah, in the case that I was doing, it was the same sort of problem. I need to know how many children I have, then iterate through them, and so I just waited for the children to be mounted, and then went and grabbed them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, actually before this, I actually used props, I think, and slots to solve a similar problem as well. But it was a little tightly coupled because you had to specify in the props how many slots, how many children are you gonna pass, right? And then, but there's a lot of interesting ways to solve the same problem. And I think this may be one of the more elegant ways.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's pretty.
This could be dynamic too. You're making a builder or something.
Yeah, I mean you can build a
Wizard builder.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I was just wondering you're a real wizard, Harry.
Missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity.
That's right.
Sad.
Excellent.
Is there a way to share that sandbox?
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking
super
of posting this. Are you on the Slack?
I don't think so, actually.
Yeah, I'll post this slide. It's on
That link
GitHub.
is broken.
The whole
The link's still
presentation.
broken.
It times out. It was a temporary link.
Oh,
That's
Oh, really?
I can ask Chris to update it before Chris leaves.
Are you an admin on the?
Yeah, right.
I'm not. That's fine. Chris is the admin. Yeah, it's good. We need a new link so we can get in there. But we can add people explicitly. If you want to drop me a message on the Vue Meetup group, I can add your
Yeah,
explicitly. Thank you so
That was
much.
fantastic.
Back to follows.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to follow that. So see y'all later. Mute this until.
This is our crowd
Here.
microphone. Try and pick up questions a little better.
Give me 1 second. Oh, you can still see me. I didn't realize that.
It's Edward.
It's Edward.
Edward in delay.
So it's you want to you might try searching the top. Just GitHub search is so bad.
Yeah, I can't throw any shade there.
And then just don't talk about it.
No, yeah. GitHub search is terrible.
So
Everyone searches.
now you gotta go to
Users, there it is.
Yeah. You want to
Searching is hard, y'all.
We're so spoiled. I mean, before Google and other searches, what did we do?
You know what's fun?
We had our forum boards.
You might have support for Elasticsearch, but only on your own instance. Because it is egregiously expensive to run.
Oh, really?
Because we have a team. Yeah. If you do a self-hosted GitLab instance, you could use Elasticsearch for all the search functionality, but it doesn't work on GitLab. It's too expensive.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beast. That's your problem. Hey, check the checkbox, man.
You're going to find out a product manager describing Google does it.
We need
What do you?
we need a new the link to invite people to Slack is expired. I'm gonna see if there's a way to do. I don't think you can do an unlimited one. I think the most you can do is like a year-long expiration, but we can update it.
Yeah. In the meantime, you can always drop us a link on Meetup, and we'll add you to the Slack.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, I am nowhere close to following up that act because I learned some really cool new stuff. Like I did not know about the inject and like that's.
I was worried that it might have been like too hard to follow on slides. That's good.
Mine is going to step us back to the very beginning of time when you're brand new to Vue, and really it's something that I deal with on a weekly basis. I have this whole concept of basically like the 80-20 rule, you know, like 80% work on real stuff, 20% work on your own things. And my 20%, unfortunately, I can't do during my working day because I'm not technically a developer. So that 20% ends up being my weekends. So what I call them weekend projects. And I love doing weekend projects. It allows me to just wake up one day and go, I want to make X, Y, Z. And that's kind of a problem because then I can't sleep or do anything else. I kind of have to work on that thing. There's a little bit of OCD there, I guess, or something. So I kind of came across a thing called Vuetify. How many of y'all know what Vuetify is? Most of the room, that's awesome. How many of y'all use Vuetify?
I'm sorry, I thought you said beautiful.
Oh, no, but that's another one. That's another one. So that's a UI framework, right? Vuetify is one, or Vuetify or whatever. It's basically Bulma, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Vuetify, which I'll get into in a second. There's Bootstrap Vue. There's Quasar. I mean, literally every day there's some new UI framework coming out, and they all look the same. Pretty much, right? So I want to talk about Vuetify because I feel like it's the most robust and has the most amount of UI components, and it's just super easy to start building on top of. So what is Vuetify? Vuetify is a material design component framework. Basically, it looks like Google. It looks like all the Google apps. It's material design that Google implemented as this is the way design should be. And Vuetify basically took that, imported it into Vue, made it into Vue components, so you can very easily add it to anything you need and start building very quickly and rapidly. And so how do you add Vuetify to Vue? Well, you can use the Vue plugins API. So Vue add Vuetify, and it just adds it to a new project. It replaces a bunch of files, so only do it on a new project because otherwise it's going to remove half the code you wrote. So don't do that. If you want to add it to an existing project, of course you can do it npm install Vuetify or Yarn, your whatever preferences for that. You can also use the Vue UI to install it as well. You search for Vuetify, click add. So we talked about it last week, or not week, last meeting, right? The Vue, yeah, Vue UI. Oh, we should have them every week then. Look at that. Yeah, I tried, guys. I tried. What's really cool is it automatically replaces your index.html and adds a link for Roboto, which is kind of the default font, and then material design icons. They used to use another one, and then just in the most recent update, they changed to material design icons, as they used the materialdesign.com version, which was like Google's version. It only had Google's icons. And now this one is Google and contributors. So you have a lot more icons to pick from, which I've actually recently started enjoying. Vuetify just went from 1.5 to 2.0 release just about a month and a half ago. Now I think they're like 2.1. They did some like bug fixes and some other updates and some cool stuff that just added in. And these are just a few selections of UI components. Don't worry, you don't have to try to squint your eyes and try to read them all, but it's very robust, and I didn't even open up the drop downs. Probably the most important one, like the inputs and controls for forms. Obviously, that like half your web apps are probably form-based stuff, but there's tables in there which are very helpful, and they even have sheets, dialogues which are helpful, carousels, cards, of course, a lot of wizards, and they have a wizard. Ah, you're a wizard, Harry. Sorry, I'm going to show you how to do it in 5 steps. The easy way to do it, because I'm a lazy developer. Nah, I'm not a lazy developer. I'm just efficient. There's some pros to it. It's a great way to start projects if you just want to wake up one day and start working on something, but it also can scale to an actual legit project, right? It can be used in production. Super easy to set up. one line in Bash, you got it. Has a bunch of pre-made components, which removes the complexity of writing a wizard by yourself. Sorry. Ooh, mic drop. Everything's prop based for your settings. So if you want something that's flat or color or whatever, you just pass in that prop and it does it, which is really, really nice to not have to think. It's just like, oh, prop color equals primary. And there it is. You can do all the cart tree shaking. So obviously if you don't need everything, you can just say, I only want these things. And you shake that tree and whoosh, you're good to go, right? And you have a theme customization. You can change colors. You can change typography, a couple of those settings. Obviously, you have Vue, so all your CSS you can update, whatever. It uses post CSS, but you, of course, you know, when you set up your project, you can add in all the other stuff, Node Sass, whatever you want. There are some cons. Project will look like all other material design projects. Yeah, we've all run into that, right? Same thing with Bootstrap. How many websites do you go to and go, oh, that was made with Bootstrap? Yeah, it's like half the web right now. This looks like Twitter for some reason. And same with material design, you get that same problem. Obviously, that's when you start a project. Hopefully you customize your projects, but it's a great way to start out because you know you can customize it very easily with CSS. So I had a hard time finding cons, to be honest. I will say one of the biggest cons is the vendor bundle size does get really large if you're not using tree shaking, if you're not using, Webpack modules or chunks. So if you're not chunking it out, it can get really, really big, you know, bigger than the recommended size. But that's like every single JavaScript framework application if you don't know what you're doing. So just have best practices, use tree shaking, use chunks, and you can actually, there's a really great, I'll actually share it a little bit, literally Vue.config.js, and you can config the Webpack chunks, or actually, sorry, it's Webpack.config.js. And you can change your chunk size where it basically loads dynamically depending on your chunk. It's a lazy loading basically of your components. So then you're not loading everything at once. So it makes it super performant. You throw in some PWA in there and it like caches it and you're just like golden. I know, yeah, I made you happy, Justin. Yay. PWA. And overriding some of the defaults can be a little cumbersome because it's so like coupled with that component. So it's like, I want to change this. Oh, it changes a bunch of shit. So you got to be like really specific on like your CSS classes on if you want to like really change something. And sometimes there's like, I got to do it in you know, exclamation important because this thing's not changing. Yeah, and I don't.
You never have to use exclamation important.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like I don't like doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, similar to Bootstrap, they have things where like people that build on themes, I guess, a whole set of themes that you can go.
Yeah,
and
yeah. You know, that's funny you say that because Great Scott to the docs.
Incredible.
See, I'm trying to help you with the memes. You
That's
gotta-
awesome. Keep engaged. It's great.
Yeah, of course. So you know what? Oh, that's not the docs. Oh yeah, because this is actually I don't really use stuff. Anyways.
Don't look at the man behind the curtain.
Wait, you can see me? Oh, dang it. So here's Vuetify. Why Vuetify? You can like watch a video, whatever. No one cares about videos. So they actually have premium themes. You can actually like buy themes. And just, you want a dashboard that's already there for $80. You want to waste money? I mean, support the guy. I mean, like it's an open source project. So I just don't like paying $80 for something. But no, there's some really good themes here. So there's like a blog theme, parallax theme, freelancer, et cetera, et cetera. The Vue, the e-commerce, Shopify e-commerce is actually the one that's specifically made for Vuetify. So they actually, you can go shop right now if you want. I think it's like my Migos.
No store right there.
Yeah, sorry. My you don't see it here, but my whatchamacallit, Zoom is in the way. So, but yeah, it's like, hey, this looks familiar.
So you can buy like Vuetify shirts there.
Yeah, if you want.
Vue swag.
Yeah, the Vuetify swag.
Absolutely.
So it's at 2.1.4 right now. But yeah, they've been around for a while, and Vuetify has a lot of really cool stuff. And so what I want to share with y'all, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger because you know I'm blind and whatever. So what's really nice is, and this is really important for of recent, is some of the rulings about accessibility. So they have accessibility built in. So yay, you don't have to think about a lot of that stuff anymore. You can just activate those slots, put in accessibility, and you're good to go. There's the a la carte stuff, which basically you can customize which ones you need. Internationalization. The most important one probably would be theming. So you can add a theme if you want. You can just say, I want everything dark. But what I want to show you is you can customize by saying I want a primary color of XYZ, secondary, accent, errors, info, success, warnings, whatever you need. And you can even add more to it if you really want. So really nice customization abilities to what you're building. I do want to go to, I'm not used to the bigger screen. Let me go back to pre-made layouts. So there's actually pre-made layouts that you can just copy and paste from GitHub that have some stuff like, oh, you want a dark YouTube kind of looking thing? It's a great place to start. So you can rapid prototype. You can build something that's like, I want to build a YouTube clone that has the word YouTube in it. Right. Or what we talked about when I first came here, Vue.js.
Yeah. All you gotta do is change that bar to green and you're done.
You know what? I think that's a great idea. So if I go here and say, you know what? Let's prototype something real quick. I'm going to do the worst thing possible, live coding.
It worked great last time.
Yeah, exactly. I went too long last time, so put me on a timer for this one. You really are putting me on a timer. Okay, so I actually have my iTerm up here real quickly. I close it, damn it. We're going to go to here. Guess what? I have a whole Vue Meetup thing. Look at that. Oh, look at that. I have a Vuetify. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do a Vue add Vuetify. It's like Beautify, but better. No, just kidding. And while that's happening, you'll actually see it will replace a few things. I'm going to go back here, make this bigger. Take a few seconds. I should have done this beforehand, but I wanted to show you how quick it was. So look at that. And I can say default. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, this is just a generic Vue app.
Yes, sorry. I decided to not waste time and just do a Vue, create Vue app. I just put UX and router in it and a processor, CSS processor, just because I like doing that. But I'm not doing any testing. This is purely, I'm going to prototype something really quick out. By the way, if you ever want to, oh, I guess there's a conflict there of SaaS loader, whatever. If you ever want to like prototype something really quickly, I found this amazing website called App Idea Generator. You just go, new idea. And you go like, a calendar app for TV show shopping. Yeah. Or I want a notes app for discovering cities.
That's incredible.
Sure. Or a cooking app for golfers.
Perfect.
I really want someone to make one of these and like hit it big, like really like, make millions of dollars.
How'd you come up with your idea?
I mean, just imagine Tinder for reading news. Swipe right for good news article, left for bad.
Good.
That's
Real news,
actually
fake news,
not
whatever.
a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. True, false too. You can do that.
Vine for firefighters. You know, they need some social media network too. You know, like check out this fire.
Check out the burns.
Oh, right. So actually, I found this and had that like I need to prototype something, and I just got back from the Austin Vue Startup Week, and I'm like, man, they're like conferencing, like scheduling stuff, like who the speakers, what time it is, kind of sucked. So I'm like, I'm gonna build something, and so the next 2 days I just kind of built something random using Vuetify. I'll show you all that code in a little bit. I made it more robust than just a basic thing. But I want to go back to this. You'll see in the red that we have the files that changed. And if I go to my VS Code project, I'm going to hide that for a second there. Okay, VS Code project, you'll see now things in yellow are changed. So my app.vue, name, all that stuff, now has plugins.Vuetify. So I have Vuetify here. And here I can actually say, okay, icon font, I'm using NBI, which is the material design icons. But I also can add the theme here as well that I just mentioned. I'm going to skip through it because I'm running low on time.
Yeah,
I don't know where I'm at. Where?
You have a minute.
A minute? Oh.
You got 7.
Okay. I'll actually prototype something real quickly in 7 minutes. That is my goal. That is literally my goal. Actually, I'm not even going to do that. because if I, okay, I'm gonna do npm run serve, and it actually changes all the defaults. So it already puts in a top bar. It does everything. It actually got rid of my routing, but I want to show y'all how easy it is to route stuff, because now you don't need router link or router. Well, you still want router view, but instead of router link, you just do a 2 equals, and you can actually say 2 equals slash. Uh-oh. Whoa.
Change the version of Node.js. I ran into this a couple days ago.
What?
Yeah, got changes to 7.1 because 8 is.
Oh, NPM.
Oh, NPM.
Puns.
What is it?
I forget. It's either.
Or is it?
I
Am I
think
drunk?
it's SAS loader.
SAS. What was that?
Are you sure it's SAS loader? Should I just do a new thing without SAS?
No. It says it at the top, that warning.
Oh, I already, sorry, I did a
I'm pretty sure
communication.
it's SAS loader.
Oof. I'm running out of time. You're not supposed to.
Okay, take your time, breathe deep. It'll be okay.
Okay. I wanted to rapid prototype for fun.
That's right, man.
I'll start that right now, guys.
Maybe Elon Musk.
SAS loader, yeah.
Yeah.
Where-
You gotta change it.
Thank you, Chris.
All of them is like a SAS loader. So you have to change it to the 7.1.
Oh, you made me an admin?
I don't even know where you're looking.
I'll try again.
It's like
That's
These are all.
disconcerting. I wasn't the admin either.
Oh my god, it's like
I'll figure it out.
everything. Holy crap. I can't even go back all the way.
No more
Too
Slack.
much.
Just me and Davey
Is it
down there.
npm installer?
Yeah.
SAS
Man, it's a nice.
loader.
That's right. So if,
7.1.
at the end of our department meeting today, we have there's like a theme where people's going to talk about like social mastery.
I did not come
Today's
across
was
this
the thing
earlier
like
today.
Complain about the
Really?
most.
No.
And the longest complaint on there was one of my coworkers complained about
thanks.
NPM because of this.
Oh,
Like he actually complained about this morning.
Yeah, I should probably change
NPM
ER, and you're right.
Things get all out of whack, and somebody can upload viruses, and nobody checks, and pick your poison. But we use it.
Okay, I'm gonna say one other thing I don't like about Vuetify. Compiling all the modules takes forever because I'm not doing tree shaking, so it's compiling everything. Oh god, this is a lot of modules. That's okay. Hey, look at that. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this is actually the default. So it changed the regular Vue default to Vue material design default. And you can see, hey, we have a grid system. It's based on Flex. It's super easy. Sorry, I'm doing this because I hate doing that. But you can see, look, hey, everything's nice and beautiful. So we're gonna, why did I do that? Just put a random slash in there. Okay, so you can see here that we have that app bar and we're passing in props app. So everything underneath the app bar is gonna be the app itself, and the bar itself is what it is. And you got a V button here to add buttons. So we can do, actually I already have autocomplete on here because VS Code has autocomplete for Vuetify. So you can just go, hey, look at that. And we can do a button color. In this case, I'm not doing a color just yet for it, just because I probably should delete that differently. But we can do something like text and it makes it flat versus something that is elevation. So you actually have directives in Vuetify that gives you different things. And if I want to do to, I don't know, the about page, because we still have views, we have about, right? We can easily do that and say text, whatever. And then you can see now I have text here. I click that and it goes to the about page, but I don't have my router still in there for the VS route, sorry, the Vue router. So we'll just add that to, instead of hello world, screw hello world. And we'll just do the router view. So we can see right here. Now, if I go here, oh, did I go too quick?
There we go.
Hey,
Nice.
look at that. So we have the about page. We got the home page, which is still pulling in the hello world.
Awesome.
So really, really nice. If I'm going too fast, slow it down.
I already had the about page that you created. That was like
Yeah, that's the default when you do the add router. It does the home and the about page. For some reason, I have some error here. I don't know why. Oh, because hello world, we're not using it anymore. By hello world. Yeah. I'm using Prettier just to pretty
Saying
things up.
one thing or?
Yeah, I'm doing some one thing. Yeah, it's linked on save. Woo. So now we can do stuff like, okay, in the about page, let's actually make this kind of pretty. So you have a thing called vContainer. So the container will automatically add out. That's going to give you padding on left to right, top and bottom. You also have directives to change some of that padding. So you can do margin top 5, and it's just I don't know why caps lock is on, but you can do this as a class. Some things have it as a prop, some have it as a class. You can do padding all 3, whatever. You can go up to, I think, 10 or so, or 15. They just changed the way it did it in the most recent update. But now you can do v.row, so you're creating a row, and they're using Flexbox for this, so you can do v.column or dash column. So you can see I can actually prototype this out real quickly. Let's do a columns of 12 for small or extra small, and then medium we'll do 6. Let's do 4 actually. We'll do 3 columns of something. And then, like I said, this is purely rapid prototyping in a nutshell. So we'll do a card, so v card, and then we can actually in the card do, I don't know, let's just do a paragraph for now. I'm just jazzing it too much. Oh, come on. Some lorem ipsum, if we will. So there we go.
Type fast.
Yeah, like I said, this is purely rapid prototyping. And actually, we'll just do a couple columns here. So you can see that we have now built out 3 different cards that on a desktop will go in a row and then as a column when we minify it. So we'll go to Chrome here. We're going to go to our text. I should rename that to about. Look at that right there. It's already centered and everything. And look at that. Oh, yeah. So really, really cool. Easy way to rapid prototype. Should I go for the holy grail and try to make a wizard?
Do it, right? Lord Ipsum, what wizard?
Yeah, no. So seriously, not to be mean to you on the wizard stuff, but it is nice to have a stepper that does. I mean, it's helpful for a lot of things, and their documentation, just like how we love Vue for its amazing documentation. Vuetify has great documentation where the template and the script showing you which things that you can use, and they have a nice little drop down of the different components inside of it, and the slots and props and events that you can put inside of it. Most of the time you're doing things prop based, so you can do things I want it dark. So actually let's go back to VS Code here. Let's go to my main toolbar here. And in the toolbar, we're gonna actually make it dark, and I'm gonna do a color of primary. Oh, I misspelled primary. And I just wanna show you, I'm just going quick on this one. Look at that, now it's blue instead of white.
Nice.
Right? And so it makes it super easy just to rapid prototype something out. If you want something flat, you just do a prop flat. If you want something, I don't know, I usually use colors in those.
Can we check out the tiles?
Yeah, sure. There you go, flat. Yeah, it's like,
I mean,
oh my God, that's easy to
fun to see it
code.
happen.
But that's super nice to have that ability to not worry about stuff, to have it already pre-made. I think, you know, we talked about earlier when we started this meeting, you know, some people like React because like, it makes me feel smart, and it's like difficult. Yeah, this is easy. This is easier than Vue. This is like Vue for beginners and easier than that, right? And you can make really epic looking projects really quickly and prototype stuff out for your own stuff. Like I built a to-do app just for the sake of, I don't like other to-do apps. I'm gonna build my own to-do app, right? Or I'm gonna build a conference app. Cool. But then you can actually scale it to production ready stuff when you want as well, right? So some of the really coolest, cool things about it, I'm not gonna throw in a stepper there. I was just messing with you on it. Unless you want me to, I'll gladly do it. I don't care. Because I'll just do this.
You're over time, Edward.
I'm over time?
Yes.
Okay, give me 2.
Use this too. It's like if Google wants to buy your code, you're like halfway there anyways. You
Right?
Right?
It looks
Yeah.
like
Yeah, fit straight in.
Actually, I don't even think I have a script tag in this. Oh, come on.
You can just click the copy button.
Oh yeah. You know, that's a great idea. You know. Okay, so we'll just go back to Chrome here, and we'll see that we have a stepper here that has continue. Cancel doesn't do anything, but yeah. So I highly recommend that give Vuetify a chance. It's a beautiful framework that looks really nice, and you can build really cool dynamic stuff out of it.
Sold.
Boom.
Right. And if you want to build that stuff from scratch, then
Yeah.
You're gonna use it for your Tinder for news ad?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah,
swiper's
right.
already there. I'm sure that swipes on that.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, thank you for your time.